What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Johnny Talks Season 1, Episode 8. This is going to be our last episode of Season 1. And I'm just super encouraged after this season. I have learned a lot of things. I've learned some things that I'm good at involving making this podcast, some things that I'm not very good at involving this podcast. But I'm really excited to take a break and really try to hone in on some of the skills that I thought I did well. And then also try to, learn a little bit from other people and maybe do a little bit more research on some things that I didn't do well, just to overall come back with season 2 for a better product. So I'm excited for that. Season 2, all that has to come. But overall, had a really fun time with this season and really enjoyed you guys following along, whether you watched every episode or just one or two. But I appreciate all the support. And yeah, I learned a lot. It's a lot harder than I thought it would be to, gain an audience and keep it consistently. But I'm encouraged, I'm inspired, and I'm motivated to keep it going in season 2 and to, see what we can make this. But if you're watching this episode, appreciate you making it this far with us. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts, please make sure you are subscribed and leave a 5-star review. That always helps. But yeah, make sure you're subscribed so when we do come out, first episode of season 2, you are notified and that you're ready to go. If you're on Instagram or TikTok, make sure you're following us there at Johnny Talks Pod as well. That will give you updates on when season 2 will be coming out. And also that's where we post, questions like what we're doing for this episode, where it's a Q&A. You'll see things like that come up there, as well as, reposting other types of content and then repurposing our content on there as well. So if you're not following us on Instagram or TikTok, make sure you give that a follow. But diving into this episode, I thought it'd be fun to end season 1 on just doing a solo episode, little Q&A. So I posted on my personal Instagram and as well as the Johnny Talks Instagram, just if you guys had any questions, and then I would answer. I'm doing a solo pod on Johnny Talks Pod. So let's dive in. So the first question someone asked was, what's one thing you learned from one of your guests during season 1? That was a really good question, and it led me to actually thinking that it was something that got brought up a lot. So it wasn't a specific one person, but multiple people in their stories, they would bring up an impactful person or an impactful event and just how they responded to it. And so it really inspired me to look into specifically the stories that they were talking about when someone gave them a piece of advice. I could think of in Grant's episode when he was talking about his mom and how she was talking to him about, not giving up on golf and then what's that's led to in his career today. Or thinking about Casey when he was talking about, you know, um, not wanting to, or he wanted to be a shortstop, and the coach was, I think you need to be a pitcher. And then when he got to college, letting people impact his pitching. I think about when I talked to Nathan and he was, wanting to be a photographer, and someone else was like, no, man, you needed to do videography. Just it seemed that every single person I had a conversation with, part of their success story was listening to someone and taking that advice and going forward with it. And I think that was really important for me to hear, because I think a lot of times I can be very me focused, and I think that I have all the answers for myself. And I don't let a lot of outside influence maybe in on my personal decisions. And it really led me to take a step back and factor in, what I could possibly be missing by not letting that in, or even asking for advice or asking for feedback. And then that kind of led the conversations to how important it is to be surrounding yourself with the right types of people. Because if you first clear the step of taking someone's advice, it also impacts the people you have around you. So if you are not having the correct people around you, you don't have the correct friend group, you don't have the correct mentors, their advice may be the wrong advice, or their influence could be the wrong influence. So it's kind of a two-way road where I need to be, more open to taking people's advice, taking people's criticism, but I need to be making sure that I have the right people in my life as well. I remember in Pastor Jordan's episode, he said the quote that it's been pretty popular, where it's, you become like the most 5 people you spend the most time with. And so it's a good reflection of who am I spending the most time with, and how am I letting them affect who I am. And that's not to say, okay, anyone who's not making good decisions, or maybe anyone who I don't align with perfectly, I can't spend any time with them. That's wrong, because, we need to be a good influence on people. We need to be a mentor to people. And so if that 1 to 2 people out of the 5 that I spend the most time with, maybe they're not moving in the right direction, or, they're not perfectly aligned with where I need to be, if I'm spending a good amount of time with them, I need to make sure those other three people that I'm spending a lot of time with are even better than me and are setting high standards. So that making sure that, overall the people that I'm spending time with is going to be encouraging me. So yeah, just making sure. I think that's something that I learned throughout talking to different people that are successful, is that they didn't just get there on their own. They were very open to people's critique, but also making sure that they were surrounding themselves with the right people, so that that critique was actually the right thing to be said. And then also just making sure I when I talk to people, they had certain moments, and I think about Nathan and his dad passing, and a couple other different stories in the podcast with some conversations on things that seemed difficult, or not seemed difficult, but were difficult, or things that happen you don't understand, why God let that happen, or hard times in your life. I know Jordan, when he was talking about, becoming a pastor, that was something he did not want to do, and he did not understand why that was put the call in his life. But when you look back, I think it was so cool to hear so many stories. And when they look back on the hard things, or the things they didn't understand, how oftentimes those were the things that they exactly needed to put themselves in the right position. I think of Nathan's story, and how he talks about, he wouldn't be where he was at with his career, or even in his relationship with his wife, if his dad hadn't passed. And as hard as that was for him, he talks about how proud he is of himself, of how he rebounded from that, and how that led him to his success today. So I think those are the two main things that I take away from this season, is being able to take in the hard times and know that there is always a way out, and that there are things that happen for a reason. But to not just, when things happen, and hard times happen, just to kind of crumble and say, why me? But really just take a look in the mirror, you know, ask yourself, ask God, pray, talk to friends, why do you think this may be happening? What's the next step? And then really just take the next step, and take the next step, and take the next step. And at the end of the day, at the end of your life, you see very clearly. I was having these conversations in this first season, and just talking about how often I can take a look back on things in my life that I didn't understand why they were happening. And then they would talk about stories in their life. They didn't understand why certain things happened, or why they had to go through that rough patch. And it all makes us and builds us and hardens us up to this person that we want to become, and the plan that God has for us. And so I think that's really the main couple things that I took away from this season, is that, bad things are going to happen, hard things are going to happen. We're not always going to understand why, but it's important to push through. And then also that the people that you surround yourself are very, very important. And then it's important to surround yourself with good people, because it's important to be able to take critique and take coaching, take criticism, because that's ultimately going to build us up and make us the best versions of ourselves. All right, the second question: are you reading any books currently? I am reading, if you're listening to this podcast, that has quotation marks. I'm reading a book by Dale Carnegie, I believe is his name, How to Win Friends and Influence People. So take a step back. I actually made a goal this year to read 5 books this year, just because I am not a reader, and that's something that I wanted to work on. I want to be more of a lifelong learner than I have been up to this point. So I made a goal to read 5 books this year, and I read Atomic Habits by James Clear to begin the year, and I was very, into that book. A lot of things that he said made sense to me. I was very intrigued by some of the things he talked about as far as habits and goals, and very fun book to read. Very highly recommend it. And picked this book as my second book. And for some reason, I don't know if it's because it was written in the early 1900s, so maybe some of the language or stories don't perfectly resonate with me, or maybe I don't want to influence or make friends as well as maybe I should, and so I'm not maybe as interested or intrigued by some of the things he has said. So it's a tougher book for me to read right now. I am not progressing through it as quickly as I need to be in order to hit that 5 book goal mark. And so I appreciate this question, because it motivates me to be able to get this book read, because I need to be held accountable, because I am going to get those 5 books done. And so I will definitely start getting back on that train. But if you want to find out what I'm reading, make sure you follow me on my private, or not my private, but my personal Instagram, because that's where I'm updating the books that I'm reading and what I'm trying to do as far as that goes. That's kind of also another thing that we talked about with multiple people in this podcast, is being a lifetime learner. And that's something that I'm really trying to focus on this year. I think once I got done with school, I became a little bit too complacent with learning and that kind of just being stagnant. And what we talked about with some of our guests is, there's really no way to be stagnant in this life. You're either getting better or getting worse. And I don't really want to get worse. So I need to be better at being a reader. And I don't know why I've always struggled with books. It's something that I only read things in school that were interesting to me and never really to learn things. So I was that kid in school that was pretty much only reading sports books, sports fiction or sports autobiographies. And I wasn't reading, books above my grade level or books about war, books about, whatever. It was never something to me that really interests me. So I'm trying to be more of a reader and a learner in these days because I don't want to let my life, slip past and be comfortable with having the same knowledge and the same learning set I had when I was 22 years old as when I'm 88. So definitely trying to be more of a reader in that way. It's kind of always been where, even in college, I look back and you think about college, and when you take these classes, you can pretty much either read the book and you're fine, or you can go to the lectures and take notes and then you'll be fine. You can usually be fine either one of those ways. And I was never a read the book guy. I was just more of a listen, take notes, and do well in class that way. I think back to even, I don't think I've told this on the pod, but I actually wanted to be a sports journalist was my main, once I passed middle school and I realized professional sports weren't on the table, that was obviously my dream, elementary school, little kid up through middle school. I think once I reached high school, I knew that was not on the board, not on the plans, but I actually want to be a sports journalist. And throughout high school, as I got older in high school, I realized I just didn't have the vocabulary that other kids did. And I think that stemmed from not really caring about reading books that, were challenging. It was more like, oh, Kobe's biography or Michael Jordan's biography. And so I think that actually ended up pushing me away from doing sports journalism is just I realized that I wasn't a good enough reader. And I think back to if I would have uh realized that when I did, instead of changing career paths or changing thoughts, if I would have just buckled down and maybe focused a little bit harder on reading and then on getting a better vocabulary and being a better writer, if I could have succeeded in that, just based off my love for sports in general. But that's something I'll never know fully, but I believe that God's got a plan for everything, and I was not meant to be a sports journalist. But that doesn't mean that I can't focus a little more on reading and being a lifelong learner, throughout the rest of my life. So that's what I tend to do. I need to be better at it. So yes, I am reading How to Influence People and Make Friends, something along with that title by Dale Carnegie. And I need to get better at reading that. And we will finish that soon and jump on to the third book of the year because I need to hit 5. All right, the third question. What podcasts do you listen to? So one of the reasons I started this podcast is I love podcasts. So I actually really don't listen to music. I know I tell people that and they think I'm lying, and I promise you I'm not. I listen to worship music in the morning occasionally if I'm out, or I listen to it throughout the day, but specifically in the morning occasionally. I'll listen to some country music maybe if I'm fishing or golfing or whatever. But other than that, I really don't listen to music. I listen to a lot of podcasts. So my podcasts kind of vary in terms of topic or what I'm trying to learn at the moment. So I obviously love sports. So I listen to a lot of sports podcasts. Listen to Part of My Take a lot from Barstool Sports. Not the most kid friendly podcast, I will say. But I just like to listen and listen to their dumb takes about sports. And so I listen to that a lot. Subpar golf podcast. Love listening to golf podcasts specifically. That was kind of what I almost went into when I started this podcast is golf is my favorite sport and I'll talk about it. So I almost started a golf podcast, but didn't. So Subpar is one I listen to a lot. I try to listen to a lot of not really self-help, but kind of a similar type of podcast. So what we're trying to do here is podcasts that sit down with people that are successful or notable in some way and just talk to them, kind of pick their brains. So I occasionally will listen to Joe Rogan. I'm not like a Rogan bro. I don't listen to a ton, but occasionally if he has a guest on that I'm really interested in, I listen to a lot of Nick Bare podcasts. He'll have a lot of people on in the fitness world, and then I listen to a lot of Chris Williamson as well. He does the Modern Wisdom podcast. I think he does a really good job of bringing a lot of people's viewpoints and expertise, and he kind of files them away. And I really like the way he facilitates conversations with his guests, and he's constantly bringing up, whether things he learned from other people or things he's read about. So I enjoy listening to his podcast as well. And then I also listen to political podcasts as well. I used to listen to a lot more Charlie Kirk. I don't listen to as much him anymore. Mainly when he does his podcast at Dream City Church, I will listen to, the faith and freedom nights that he does. But when I'm really trying to, make sure I'm caught up with political stuff, I will listen to more like Ben Shapiro these days. Just because I don't want to be the one thing I have against Charlie, I don't have against him, but why I don't listen to him as much anymore is that he tends to be, no matter what President Trump says or does, he is all for it. And so I kind of want to make sure that I'm listening to people who are maybe not whatever he does, they're fully for. And so Ben's someone who will criticize or praise depending on what he thinks. Obviously, it's still a opinion. So, but I'll listen to Ben quite a bit, just kind of hear his take on something that was done politically. Sometimes I'll have questions, and he's very analytical, and he does a good way of kind of answering what's in my brain already. And so I listen to a good amount of him. And then of course I listen to a lot of sermons. So I'll listen back to my church where I went to in Phoenix, Arizona, Dream City Church. I like to listen to their sermons that they have throughout the week and make sure I'm caught up with that. And then someone who I've been listening to recently is Noah Herron. He is a younger preacher based out of Nashville, which is funny because I think one maybe sinful issue I had in the past is I didn't do well with taking in younger voices of the church. And I don't know if that was for some reason of me thinking that they had to be a certain age to be knowledgeable, or that maybe I wasn't comfortable enough with what I knew at my faith. And so if I was like, oh, someone's near my age, they don't know near enough to be doing this. And so I've been really working on being more open to younger voices and realizing that they have very important things to say. And so Noah's one of my favorite young preachers, and I think he brings a really positive word. So I like to catch up to what he's been preaching about too. So yeah, I listen to a lot of different podcasts, mostly involving sports, politics, fitness, and then sermons as well. So kind of a wide variety. Moving on to the fourth question, a pretty deep one actually. What has been the hardest season of your life, and how did you overcome it? Um, I can think about two specific seasons. I struggle to talk about, and I think it's something I need to be better at, talking about seasons of vulnerability or weakness, simply because I know that the struggles and the things that I've gone through in my life is very little to things that a lot of people have had to overcome and do. And so I don't want to make others feel, I don't want to downplay others what they've gone through. So I think internally I feel maybe bad that I haven't gone through as many tough things as other people may have gone through, and so I tend to downplay things that I've gone through, which I've realized is not a healthy and not a safe way to go about things, because you need to be able to talk about and share different experiences. And I think that's something that I struggle with when people will come up to me and try to have conversations and talk about their testimony with me, and I struggle to share things that I have gone through or that have happened to me, just because I don't feel, I guess, worthy enough to talk about those kind of things. But it's something I'm working on. So I appreciate this question. Two things that I immediately think of. The first season that was really hard for me was my mom actually got breast cancer when I was a freshman in high school. And that one was really tough for me, simply because I think we grow up thinking, our parents are invincible, and you're naive in kind of thinking, your life as it is right now is always going to be the same, and you're going to have the same parents forever, and siblings, and no one's ever going to die. And you just don't, unless you've been exposed to death at an early age, you don't really think about your parents dying, and you think of them as healthy individuals. And out of nowhere, my mom getting breast cancer really, really hit me hard. And even though it was found early on, um and she was going to be okay, she did have to do a major surgery to make sure it didn't come back or happen again. And it really impacted me into kind of having to grow up a little bit and realize that life was fragile, and I couldn't just take things for granted. And so it really made me take a look at my life and really find a place of gratitude. And so that was really, really tough just because I had to wake up from a lot of things. And I think I was privileged in a way where I didn't really have to, uh, experience a lot of childhood trauma. And so I had a good childhood, and my parents loved each other, and we had a happy house, and good memories. And so I think that was one of the first really hard things that I had to deal with. And yeah, I think it made me be a little more, have gratitude for what I have, and be a little more live in the moment and be appreciative of things that we have and the people that are around us. So that was a hard season for me, specifically just because I had entered into high school. Around that time, two of my best friends, pretty much the only two best friends I had, ended up moving away in the span of 6 months. So I pretty much had no one I felt comfortable enough to talk to. I felt like I'm the oldest sibling, so I had to be strong for my siblings. And I remember picking up my mom from appointments because my dad was at work, and just having to be someone that was strong. And I wasn't really fully built for that. And I tend to be a little bit more on the emotional side of things. And that was tough for me to go through that. Um, but she's perfectly fine. That was what, 2012, it's 2025 now. So still have my mom around, love her. And she is a loyal listener to the podcast. So love you, mom. And then the second season of my life that I can remember being really, really hard was actually, it's a prolonged season. I don't talk about this a lot, but I feel like this is a good space to share. I struggled with anxiety for a long part of my life, and bits of depression. I take depression very, very seriously, and I don't want to, ever be like, oh, I had full on depression. I was never suicidal, but there were very, very dark moments I had, specifically with anxiety, and it would kind of go off and on throughout the years, especially in high school during the winter, cold, not a lot of light. I would play, a winter sport, and so I wouldn't see a lot of the light. Go to school and then start practice after in the gym until it's dark and go home, and I don't think that helped. But even when I went to college in Arizona, you're in the sunshine. That was actually when my anxiety got the worst. And I remember I was at a point where I almost was disassociating with what was real life. Not like I was having, like I wasn't picturing things or imaging things that weren't actually happening, but I was struggling to just be present and involved in real life. And it came to a point where I had actually met my wife, Cass. We were dating at the time and doing long distance. And I think that spiked the anxiety. First time being in a serious relationship, first time ever having those feelings for someone. And she was 2,000 miles away out of college. And I didn't know where she was all the time. I didn't know who she was hanging out with. I hoped that she felt the same way about me that I felt about her. Um, but those doubts started to creep in, and I think that just kind of spiked my anxiety, not knowing, what was going on. And it was an unhealthy spot. And I remember just kind of being disassociated with life. I was My job at the time was very stressful, and I remember just having panic attacks when it was Sunday night, going to knowing I had to go to work the next day. And it just became, I was at a very unhealthy state. And our church, or the church that I was attending, Dream City Church, it was so crazy, and it was such a God encounter, because right when I was in the midst of my anxiety being the worst, where I literally couldn't function, I was losing weight because I couldn't eat. I didn't know what was the source of why I was so anxious all the time, but no matter where, if I was going to work or hanging with some friends or whatever, I was just so anxious about doing anything. I didn't even want to leave the house. They held an anxiety and depression night, and the guy came in and talked about, it was a pastor, and he talked about, we oftentimes I talked with Pastor Jordan about this, how we oftentimes look at pastors as invincible, or these people that, nothing go wrong in their lives, and not perfect, but a form of it. and we hold them to these examples. And so hearing a pastor talk about uh, being suicidal, battling anxiety, battling depression, really kind of opened me up to realizing that it was normal, uh, but that things needed to change. And I went up for prayer, and it was one of the craziest moments of my life. The lead pastor of the church. Um, I'm not someone who, even if I am, if I need something for prayer or could use it, I don't oftentimes go up, at a church service or a sermon like that. I'll pray about it or maybe ask a friend to pray about it, but I don't often go up. And for some reason, in the midst of all that anxiousness in a huge church, I walked up to the front and I asked Pastor Barnett to pray for me, and that I wanted to be not just deal with the anxiety or be better about it, but I asked if he would ask God to completely take it away, because I didn't want to be that person anymore. I didn't want to be feeling that way. And he prayed, and I immediately felt the Holy Spirit in my body. To this day is one of the most miraculous things that's ever happened to me, and the craziest thing. And I was immediately healed from the anxiety, from the depression. Occasionally things will happen in life where, I feel a little bit anxious, but nowhere to the daily things that I felt in the monthly, month after month after month. And he set me free from it, and I'm forever thankful for Dream City for having that event, and Pastor Barnett for praying over me, but all obviously God and Jesus for seeing me where I was at and heal me from it. So I think that was a really hard period in my life, but I'm so thankful for it, because now I can use this story too when I hear people talk about, I'm anxious about this, or I struggle with this depression. It's not something where I don't have any way to connect with them. I know exactly what they're feeling, and I know exactly what it's like to be in that moment and not feel like what's around you is real. And so I'm thankful for it, because I came out better from it, and I feel like I can now be someone of help to someone else going through it. So, all right, question number 5: what's your best tip for marriage? It's funny because we actually just had a marriage session of sermons at church, and I think Pastor Aaron in his last sermon kind of summed up what I feel is the best for marriage. So I've been married about 3 years now, and so I'm not ever going to pretend like I know it all. But I really think to have a successful marriage, you have to walk into it with a feeling and an identity of being a servant, and dropping your selfishness at the door of walking into that marriage, dropping a me first attitude, and realizing that really the only way to be successful is to serve your wife. And obviously, in this case, my wife, but if you're a girl, serve your husband as well. And I think that that's really what I've learned about marriage is when you are actively seeking out, when I'm actively seeking out my wife's best interests, and I'm trying to serve her, make things easier for her, that multiplies both ways. And when she feels served, she's going to want to serve me. And so it's not just me trying to be selfish and go, oh, I need to do 1, 2, 3, I'm going to go do that. By me serving her first, and me having that serve first attitude of, I don't want to win just me singularly, I want us to win as a couple. She feels that, and then she's wanting to serve too, and it's not just going to be what's 1, 2, 3, what she's trying to get done. I think so many times people walk into a marriage and they forget to leave that selfishness at the door, and it becomes how can I win situation. And I think it's important in a marriage to, I see people when they're married, and they're always trying to win an argument, or I'm trying to prove a point, or I'm trying to do this. And I don't think it's necessarily helpful in a marriage to always be trying to win an argument or to beat down another person. I think when a lot of times I see someone in a marriage get hurt, they are thinking their first response is, how can I hurt the other person back? What's something that I can say to them in this fight that's really going to sting, that's really going to hurt them? And what I've learned is if I feel hurt or if I feel like I didn't appreciate something that happened, the best way to build a marriage is to not, what's the first thing I could say to try to hurt her? No, it's, oh, this is maybe why I felt this way. This is maybe something that happened on purpose or not that made me feel this way. So like we can build that up, make it not happen again, and we never have to have this discussion. But I think a lot of times people don't want to work it out in that way. As soon as they feel pain or as soon as they feel hurt, their first instinct is to give it right back. And so that would be my best tip besides serving in marriage, is to not always try to be the person that gives it right back to them. But really, if something happens, take it in, realize maybe reflect on why it hurts. And I think that's something that I've learned too is sometimes I may be, something may have been said or something may have been done. And maybe I have, hurt feeling about it or whatever, or didn't like the way it happened. And then I reflect and realize maybe nothing was actually done wrong on her end. It was more of something that I need to work on, where why was I offended by that, or why did that happen? And so I think those are my main two tips, is to always be someone who is trying to serve and improve the other person's life, and in turn that's going to improve yours. But really making sure that you're never actively trying to hurt the other person or win a point or batter them down, because at the end of the day, you're in a marriage, you're in a partnership to build each other up and to build a life. So if you're actively just trying to tear them down every day, or you take stuff out at them, whether something happened at work or with a friend, and you come home and they're your battering ram, you're really just tearing yourself down, because the Bible says one man and one woman come together and they become one flesh. So you made a covenant with that person, you become one flesh with that person. So if you're constantly bringing them down, tearing them down, trying to win fights, trying to win arguments, bringing up arguments, doing all of that, you're really bringing yourself down as well, because a true marriage, you're coming together as one. So build each other up. Don't always have to be right or win an argument. Pick your time, pick your places, and really just try to serve your significant other, and focus on what they're trying to do, and how to improve their life, and then really grow together, making sure that you are actively in the Word, and praying with each other and for each other. And so I think those are key aspects that we've done so far, and 3 years in, going great so far. I have no complaints. So that's what I have to say on that. All right, the next one, a little bit of a spicy one. How do you balance religion and politics? So I think it's important to realize your therefore statement. And I think there can be a really healthy balance between your political views and your religious. So obviously, I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ, and I have a relationship with him. And so even the word religion, I don't have a religion. I have a relationship with Jesus Christ, and that's how I look at it. But I look at my life as a therefore statement. At least I try to. I am a Christian, and therefore instead of where I think it can get worrisome is I'm a conservative, or I'm a Democrat, or I'm a Republican, or I'm a liberal, and then therefore I. And I want to be careful to never let my political thoughts be my therefore I, because that becomes a very unhealthy way to live your life. So I am a Christian first, therefore I feel this way about politics. Or I am a Christian first, therefore I feel this way about life. And so I really try to, before I think anything about a certain way politically, I look at my Bible, I pray, I really ask, what are the things that are important here? What would Jesus believe on this topic? And so I think that's very important, first off. But I will say that it has become very mainstream as far as the American church to downplay politics and to downplay the importance of it. And I also think that's wrong as well. So I do not think politics should be your number one thing. I definitely do not think it should be your number one thing. It should not be your number two or number three, but it should have a place, simply because it's important. And what happens when the American church stops caring about politics and stops voting is what we've seen play out in the last couple of decades. And I'm not going to get too far into it, just because that could be a whole podcast in itself. But I would highly encourage you to find a good balance between your relationship, your religion, and your politics, because at the end of the day, politics are important because it affects the way you can worship in your country. It affects the way your kids what they're being taught at school or what's going on in their community. I was talking to someone before this election, and I think I put on my Instagram, like, if you're a Christian and you're not planning on voting, let me know why. Just want to have a conversation. And someone messaged me and said, I'm not voting because I believe in the sovereignty of God, and whatever he wants to happen is going to happen, and he doesn't need my vote to do it. And I took that in, and my response was, that's pretty silly. And I'll tell you why that's silly. Yes, God is all powerful. He's all sovereign. He knows what's going to happen. He has plans he's planned it all to this point. He has plans for the future. That is all true. But he uses us as humans to make those plans happen. Ephesians 3:20 says, "Now all glory to God through his mighty power at work within us to accomplish infinitely more than we might ask or think." He gives us free will for a reason. He uses us to accomplish what he needs to do. And so I think it can be very dangerous to go, oh, well, whatever God wants to happen is going to happen anyways. I don't need to do anything. I challenged him and I said, I love your belief in your faith in God's work. But imagine you said that about food and water. I believe in God's sovereignty for my life, but so I don't need to, he's going to take care of me no matter what. I don't need to eat or drink for a month. Well, about 7 days without water, you're going to be dead. You have to be able to separate, your faithfulness in God and still take action on your own belief. God doesn't want you to go, oh, well, I believe in God and I believe he's going to take care of me, so I don't need to eat or I don't need to feed myself or give myself something to drink. You still need to take care of yourself. God's not looking up there and being like, oh, I love how he's, showing his faith by not drinking water for 5 days. He's gonna be like, dude, take a sip of water. There is a difference between believing in God's plan for your life and for this country and for this world and still taking action on it. We have free will. We still need to take action on things. God has a great plan for your life and for my life. I still need to eat food and drink water. I still need to do things on my own to be able to make his plan come into will. I have a son, and if I believed that, God had his best plan for my son and for his life, which I do, I still need to be a good dad to him. I still need to put a shelter over his head. I still need to feed him. I still need to clothe him. I still need to put him around the right groups of people for him to line up and get to that plan that God has for him. If I said, I believe God has a great plan for my son, so I don't need to be a good dad. I don't need to give him shelter. I don't need to give him love. I don't need to give him food. I don't need to give him safety, because don't worry, God's got a plan for him. I'd be a really bad dad and I would not be setting him up for success. So when you go into that and look at politics and go, I don't need to care about politics because whatever God wants to happen is going to happen, I think that's a very, very poor outlook on it. And you need to be able to take a look at your Bible. What does God say about certain things? And then, how does that affect in today's world? And so that would be my advice on it. Take your therefore statement. Set your identity first. I am a Christian first, therefore I. Don't let politics, don't let one person, and that's the other thing too, is I think in politics these days we've become too singular person focused. And both ways, you'll hear someone go, I love everything this person does, and no matter what they say or do, as far as politics wise, I'm good with it. That's very dangerous. I don't think that's good at all. Or whatever, if I'm a Republican or if I'm a Democrat, whatever my party is doing at the same time, that's the right thing. That's dangerous. But what's also dangerous, and what I hear a lot of people as well, is go, I'm not going to vote. I maybe agree with more of what this party stands for, but because of who's running as this person, I can't vote for them because ABC of what they've done, or I can't vote for either of these people because this other person, 1, 2, 3, what they've done. If you're waiting for the perfect person to vote for a president, you're going to be waiting till Jesus comes. And newsflash, Jesus is already king, so he doesn't need your vote. Okay. If you're waiting for the perfect person to vote for a president, it's never going to happen. People are sinful. Politics are sinful. It's about taking a step back away from, taking a look at, individuals is fine, but taking a step back, viewing it as a broad spectrum. Okay, which candidate is going to put more policies in place that me personally as a Christian, I think need to be in place, and stop viewing it so much as a 1v1 person. Because if you take a look at it, step back, yes, it's one person as president, but they also have, a cabinet, they have, Congress, they have House. And so it goes beyond just one person. What is the overall view of what they're going to try to do? Which one of those people, parties, whatever, go more in place with what you believe as a Christian and what you believe in the Bible. So I would encourage you to be involved in politics, but to obviously not let it become your one all be all, because at the end of the day, that's Jesus. Moving on to the next question, a little bit lighter. Who has the best swing on tour? For me, maybe not technique wise, but just overall look. I love Jake Knapp's swing, and I know that gets a lot of buzz these days, but I could watch that dude swing a golf club over and over. His tempo, his balance is just second to none. I love his driver swing. Love watching him play. Doesn't hurt that he's a UCLA Bruin as well, so always give me a little extra, juice to root for him. But yeah, I'd have to say Jake Knapp's my favorite swing on tour. Ludwig has a really good move that I like to watch. I would say those two are the two that I would say. Yeah, I would give those two the best swings on tour right now. Question number 8: did you play any sports in high school or college? So growing up, I was mostly baseball and football were my two main sports, and then basketball as well. And so football, basketball, baseball were my main sports growing up. Unfortunately, I did not hit a growth spurt until after high school. And so quickly realized that those three sports, no matter, how good I was skill wise, I was going to struggle to get playing time just based off size. Baseball, I ended up being, as the years got on, more through middle school, the worst out of those three. And so I probably could have, at my size, been a fine baseball player at the high school level, but skill wise just wasn't as good as football and basketball. Basketball, I would say I was probably best at, but at my short stature, that just wasn't going to last. And so my goal was always to play collegiate sports. And so after freshman year basketball, I was at a crossroads because basketball was my one sport that I cared everything about. And after, elementary, middle school, travel basketball, all of that, being one of the better players in the town and in the area, I barely got any playing time at the freshman level. And so whether that being, actually what I should have gotten or not, who never, or who knows, but I quickly realized that I needed to find something that I could do and play at a collegiate level, because that's ultimately my goal. And so I tried golf out my freshman year of high school and was really bad at it. But what I realized about golf was that your playing time was based off your score. So your size didn't matter. What coach thought about you didn't matter. It was literally, what'd you shoot in the qualifier? That's what spot you're at. So I got pretty addicted to golf. I jumped straight into golf, and my freshman year average was 112, not good. And I dropped that all the way to an 88 my sophomore year. So pretty much that winter, spring, summer, all I did was golf. I quit every other sport. And that's pretty much all I did through high school. Was I just dedicated myself to golf, got as good as I could at that. I did play football my senior year just because I wanted to have that, Friday Night Lights experience. I love football so much, and that was my dream originally. When I was a little kid, I wanted to be a football player, and so I had to do that Friday Night Lights experience. Now, naturally, at my size and hadn't played in 3 years, most of that experience was on the sidelines under the lights. But I still played a little bit, but not much. But I still was on the team, and I enjoyed that. But yeah, I just got really dedicated to golf. And then I did end up playing one semester, which is a funny story, at the NAIA level of golf. So I got a half scholarship out of high school to go play golf at a school in Northern California. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I originally was supposed to go to Grand Canyon University just as a regular student, D1 school. So I wasn't anywhere at that level to play golf for them. And I got an offer for a half scholarship to play at an NAI school in Northern California. And so I thought, at this rate I'm improving, as a freshman, I shot average 112. By, senior year, my average was the high 70s. By the summer after senior year, my average was in, the mid to low 70s. I thought I would just keep improving. I would go to NAI school. I would transfer after a year to a D1 school. I would end up making pro. I would do all that. I quickly realized once I got to the NAI level that I was never going to be a professional golfer, and that my skills were not as good as they needed to be to play at the collegiate level. And when you go to a small school like that, you need to make sure that the sport is a good experience, because oftentimes maybe the school experience isn't all you may want your college experience to be. And so I did not enjoy the college experience there. I realized I was not going to be a good enough golfer to go pro. And so I left the school after that semester and transferred to Grand Canyon University. So didn't play D1 golf at GCU, just was never on that level, but did get to play club golf, which ended up being a blessing in disguise. Met some of my best friends playing club. We had a super competitive program. We won nationals one year, so we got to travel a bunch. Super, super fun. So that ended up being a blessing in disguise, which, yeah, so kind of played college, not really. I don't know. I mean, I played it a semester at NAIA level, so whatever you want to call that. But yeah, my best sport that I ended up being best at was golf. But still love football, basketball, baseball, and golf. Follow all of that very, very hard. Have all my teams I root for. So definitely a sports guy. And I hope Brooks, Cass, my wife, I will say right now, she, as far as athletics goes, she was a better athlete than me as far as, speed and strength and all that. So I hope she gets, I hope our son gets some of her athletic ability on that. And then hopefully I can coach him up on the skill aspects of stuff. And maybe hopefully he'll be a better athlete than me, but we'll see. Next question. What is your workout split right now and diet? Diet, I have nothing specific. I have never been someone, there's been times where, I will be more calorie restrictive, or, uh, you know, maybe low carb or high protein, stuff like that. That is something that I've never been super, super strong with, is diet. I do try to eat well. I don't like eat out a bunch. I don't eat a ton of dessert. But if I want to make burgers at home, I'm gonna make burgers. If I want, a nice sandwich with bacon on top, I'm gonna make that. So I'm not super restricted with my diet, just because I don't have any really specific training goals that I have. And I eat well enough to take care of myself. So, I'll enjoy a Culver's burger on the weekends, or a slice of pizza at my favorite place. So I'm not super restrictive on diet. I just try not to do anything crazy, just everything that's maybe not good for me in moderation. As far as workout split, I normally switch it up. There'll be time periods where, I'll do the bro split, where it's like all chest one day, all back one day, all arms one day. Right now, I'm doing more of a push pull legs split. And then I'm actually going to start incorporating more running. I said in a previous episode, I ran a half marathon, let's see, 2022. So it's been about 2.5 years since I did that. And so I felt, once I was talking to Jordan a little bit, Pastor Jordan, who's training for a marathon right now, kind of felt it was maybe time for me to do something again. So I think I'm going to run that same half this November in St. Pete. I'm going to do it with Nathan, who we had on, I think, episode 4. So we're going to do that. So I'll start training for that. So I'm going to start adding some running in. I plan on following a better program this time. The first time I ran a half marathon, I kind of just winged it and kind of felt my way around the training. I would run, on Monday, a short, fast run. On Wednesday, I would run a medium length at the pace that I was trying to run the half marathon at. And then on Saturday or Sunday, I would do a longer run at a slower pace. And I never had you're going to run this many miles at this pace, or it was kind of more how my body felt. So I think this time I want to follow a better program, a better routine. And so, yeah, that'll be interesting to kind of see how that goes. And definitely want to, anytime I do something like this, I want to do my best at it. And so I want to break, I guess my goal for this would be to break the time that I did before, which was 151, I believe. It was an 8:30 pace, exactly, whatever that is. So yeah, I'm gonna run a half marathon in November, and I'm gonna break that 8:30 pace, and it's pretty much all there is to it. So yeah, my training program will start being a little bit more towards the running aspect. Last question, very broad. I don't know what exactly was specifically towards. What's your goal? So I don't know if that was what your goal for the podcast or goals in life or general. I'll just hit a few. Goals for the podcast. It's never something to, this many followers or this many views. I really just want to do something creative where I could talk to people really selfishly to become better myself, and just as an excuse to have conversations with people that are doing certain cool things in life, or successful in certain aspects, and just kind of pick their brain selfishly, just to be better myself. But also, I think podcasts are such a powerful way to get information out there and to get conversations out there. So I want to do that as well, to just be able to provide a platform, a clean platform where anyone can listen. A lot of my favorite podcasts, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but it's every person's which way, but maybe a little bit more rough, a little more cursing and stuff. And so I want to create a product where if you're watching in your living room, your kid can come by and you don't have to worry about something that's going to be being said. So just creating something like that. As far as goals for this, I just want to continue to have people on that are making a difference, that are doing cool things, and really start to build more of a community of people that can, build each other up and do this together. Because we talked about this with multiple different people. Life's all about community. Life's about, finding your purpose and finding your community, and building together. And so I really, through this, hopefully that we can end up, building numbers would be great, but just building a community of like-minded individuals that are in this together, and wanting to succeed. So I think that would be my goal with the podcast. As far as goals in life, I don't know. I think becoming a dad has really made me rethink maybe what my goals were. I think if you asked me maybe in sophomore in college, like what would be your goals, and be like, make this amount of money, have this house, live here. And I think my goal now is obviously to have a strong relationship with Jesus and my wife and my kid. But really, I want to just have the best family life possible, I think, and just give the best life possible for my son. And that's not just like handing him things, but making him work for things as well. And I think just creating really good memories as a family is one of my goals, and just growing up in the church, and growing him up in the word. And I think what kind of a mind shift change that I've had since becoming a dad is really realizing how minimal it is to focus all your life on work and money. I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of, when you're on your deathbed, I don't think there's a lot of people that go, oh, I wish I would have made more money, or I wish I would have gotten this higher up at a job. Those are things that we focus on in the middle or in the midst of it. But I think at the end of your life, there's a lot of people that look back and they go, I wish I would have spent more time with family. I wish I would have done this hobby more. And so I really try to live my life not based off monetary or success by what, we're being told around us as success, like 80-hour work weeks or this much in their 401k. And I want to be able to work hard and make sure that, our family is provided for in different ways. But ultimately, I want to make memories with my family, spend time with my family as much as possible, explore my hobbies, be the best at, certain things that I can do. I think that's really my goal, is just to really live a all around satisfied life, would be my goal. So yeah, I think that's kind of where my focus is on right now, just making sure that when I'm at home, I'm intentional, and when I'm out, doing things, fitness wise, or I'm trying to get back into golf right now. That I'm trying to be not just out there just to do, but making sure that if I'm taking time away from my family, whether it's for business or it's for pleasure, that I'm getting the most out of it that I can. And so I don't have the mindset that I think is common or is being preached of work your heart out in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, halfway through your 60s, and then at 65, enjoy the balloon that you've created. I would rather enjoy my life the best I can in my 20s, in my 30s, in my 40s, in my 50s, because your next day is not promised. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now, is making sure that each day I'm taking time to spend time, in the Word, but also in community with friends, spending time encouraging and building a relationship with my wife, and with my son, and just being the best dad. And so I think that's the goal for me right now. Yeah, just to all around in all areas of life, just live a full, healthy life. So that's where I'm at right now. But that is going to wrap it up for today's Q&A, and that's going to wrap it up for Johnny Talks Season 1. Appreciate all the support, feedback. Again, I'm definitely going to take this little time off to really reflect, try to get better at the things that I'm already feel like I'm good at, and really work on the things that I feel like I struggled or could do better at, because I really want to create a good product for you guys. And so making sure that I'm taking this time off to set up good guests and good talking points, and make sure we're perfecting this to try to get as good as possible for you guys. But if you made it this far, I appreciate you. Thank you for supporting this pod. We'll be back for season 2. Make sure you're subscribed and following the Instagram and TikTok to know when that's going to drop. But until then, we'll see you next time. Peace.